A massive fire engulfs 30 houses in Uspenka, Russia. Authorities say 79 people were evacuated from the area. Good evening, I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is set to attend King Charles's coronation. China opposes the United States meddling in the West Philippine Sea. NATO performs military drills in Finland. White House denies drone strike on Kremlin. And second mass shooting in Serbia claims 8 lives. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is scheduled to attend the coronation of King Charles III on May 6. J.D. Mahinay has the details.
Over 2,000 guests, including President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., will attend the coronation of King Charles III in the Westminster Abbey. This is after the president confirmed that he will meet United Kingdom Prime Minister Rishi Sunak in London after the last 5-day official working visit to the United States. The two country leaders will discuss diplomatic ties between the Philippines and the United Kingdom.
I think that that is constant right now. We trade and we continue to help ang ating mga Filipino nationals na nandun sa UK at yun lang siguro ang mga concern natin. Ngunit titignan natin kaya makikipagkita ako sa kanilang bagong Prime Minister Sunak upang makapag-usap kami kung merong bang pagbabago sa kanyang pag-iisip sa pagpartner ng UK at saka ng Pilipinas. Sa palagay ko ay ganun din ang sasabihin niya na dapat papatibayin natin.
Besides from Prime Minister Sunak, there are other leaders who also want to talk to President Marcos. According to the president, there would be a quick conversation and exchange of notes due to the lack of time. Coming from United States, the president will arrive at the Gatwick Airport in London for the coronation.
That usually, hindi sa Gatwick ang pinupuntahan. Ngunit ngayon ay pupuntahan ko yung Gatwick dahil titignan ko yung operation ng kanilang airport. Kung bagay ba ito, yung mga lessons learned nila, yung mga ginagawa nila, kung best practices yan na pwede nating dalhin sa Pilipinas.
Based on his schedule, upon arrival, the president will attend a reception at Buckingham Palace a day before the ceremony. J.D. Mahinay for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is set to bring home $1.3 billion worth of investment pledges, or equivalent to almost 6,700 new jobs for Filipinos. The president is proud of the successful bilateral meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, as well as with Department of Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, and other cabinet officials in expanded bilateral meetings. Not only the strengthening of the long-term relationship between the two countries were discussed, but also the response to the challenges the Philippines is facing today and in the future. They also discussed peace and development in the two countries.
The joint statement we issued outlines the key initiatives that we will pursue across all areas of our bilateral engagement to achieve these objectives. I look forward to having our respective teams follow through on the many areas of cooperation that we have identified. This will help advance our key priorities with respect to agriculture and food security, and to promote energy security as we transition to clean energy and boost trade and build resilience of our supply chains, enhancing connectivity and digitalization, also of climate change, mitigation and adaptation. In addition to existing bilateral policy dialogue platforms and working groups, we agreed to institutionalize a ministerial-level study group to advance cooperation on climate-smart agriculture, which I myself will lead.
Due to the consecutive meetings he had with large U.S. companies, he brought home over $1.3 billion worth of job prospects, or equivalent to 6,700 new jobs. Biden's trade and investment mission will also help the Philippines economy. Marcos Jr. stressed that the interest to invest in the country by big businesses in the United States is a sign of their trust and confidence in the Philippines. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. says the United States has not asked for assistance from Philippine troops should a war break out between the U.S. and China over tensions in Taiwan. In a forum hosted by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, President Marcos Jr. says the U.S. has never made this request. He adds that U.S. presence in the Philippines is not for the purpose of war. The president is referring to the additional sites established under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA. Since the addition of the new EDCA sites, China has repeatedly warned that peace in the region is in danger. Marcos reminds that any attempt to use the EDCA sites for offensive action would be outside of the parameters discussed. China says it opposes the meddling occurring in the West Philippine Sea. The opposition comes after the release of the U.S.-Philippines bilateral defense guidelines, which aim to modernize alliance cooperation. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning says the guidelines harm China's territorial sovereignty, its maritime rights and interests. Mao adds the West Philippine Sea is a shared home for neighboring countries and not a hunting ground for forces outside the region. The bilateral defense guidelines reaffirm that an armed attack in the area on the armed forces of the Philippines or U.S. would invoke commitments under the 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty. The guidelines were released during the official visit of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to the United States. Oil industry sources assure a big-time rollback on Tuesday, or May 9. The price rose under 2.85 per liter of diesel, 2.12 pesos in gasoline, and 2.46 pesos in kerosene or gas. The rollback is based on the movement of four-day trading in the global market. This is the third consecutive week of the price rollback in pump prices. Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA Chief Dennis Mapa, records inflation rate this month dropped by 1% from 7.6% last month.
Ang pangunahing dahilan ng pagbagal ng antas ng inflation nitong Abril 2023 kaysa noong Marso 2023 ay ang mas mabagal na paggalaw ng presyo ng food and non-alcoholic beverages.
This is the third drop in inflation rate from the highest of 8.7% in January. The Central Bank of the Philippines predicts that the inflation rate will be between 6.2% and 7.1% in the last month. Inflation is a rate movement in the price of basic good necessities and utilities. DOH officer in charge Maria Rosario Vergeire advises all hospitals in the country to prepare COVID-19 wards amid spike in cases. The Undersecretary further explained that there is no reason for the public to panic because of the recorded cases in the past 2 weeks were either asymptomatic or with mild symptoms. Vergeire says this is to assure that there will be additional COVID-19 beds if there are more admissions occurring. Octa research data shows that as of May 3, 2023, in National Capital Region, the 7-day testing positivity rate was at 20.4% from 14% on April 26. Vergeire notes that the uptick in COVID-19 cases is due to the emergence of new virus variants, increased mobility of people, and vulnerable individuals exposed to the virus. Some senators are pushing for separate legislation to raise wages and give more benefits to medical frontliners in the private and public sectors. Mian Corvera tells us more.
In Senate Bill number 2082, submitted by Senator Francis Escudero, he wants to increase the salary of dentists to 43,030 from the current 31,320 pesos or salary grade 13. According to Escudero, it is difficult for the government to get dentists for public hospitals because of the very low salary. The National Database of Selected Human Resources for Health shows there are only 1,943 dentists employed in the public sector until December 2022, which means one dentist is serving the oral needs of 57,000 Filipinos. Some senators are also pushing for wage hike and give more benefits to medical frontliners in the private and public sectors. This is to increase the daily wage of medical frontliners in the private and public sector. In addition to increased salary, Senator Ramon Bong Revilla Jr. promotes additional benefits for all healthcare workers. This includes an additional 150 pesos to the daily salary of medical frontliners. In Revilla's proposal, kalusugan ang prioridad. He also wants medical frontliners to be given a 20% discount and free from paying value-added tax on the purchase of vaccines, essential medical supplies, and other accessories and equipment. If it became law, it will cover all medical, administrative, technical support, and other personnel working in all treatment facilities. Mian Corvera for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Coming up, Canada Foreign Minister Melanie Joly contemplates expelling China diplomat. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese discourages Julian Assange extradition. And Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness keen on cutting ties with British monarchy. Stay tuned for more stories around the globe when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Usapan natin ang top 5 killer diseases sa bansa. Ano-ano kaya ang mga sakit na ito? Bakit kaya ito ang leading cause of death sa ating bansa?
So yung mga sakit po natin sa puso, sa dugo, maraming factors that come into play po. Pero ito po mga sakit na ito, lifestyle-related diseases.
Marami makaka-relate dito. May diabetes.
May common risk factors po ito.
Ika nga payat.
Opo.
Ikakaroon pa rin, di ba?
Kaya ka pumapayat, meron ka na palang diabetes.
Dinala nyo na kagad si Gato sa ospital. No?
Ang alam namin sa heart attack is nahihirapan huminga.
Oo.
Pero siya po kasi more on back pain. So nung nagsuka na siya, doon na po kami na-alarma.
Hindi kami nananakot, pero importanteng usapin po ito. Mag-reality check tayo.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. 19 countries applied to join 5-member bloc BRICS. South African Ambassador to BRICS, Anil Sokolal, says BRICS will meet in Cape Town on June 2 and 3 to discuss expansion in the bloc. He adds that 13 countries formally requested while 6 informally apply. In 2010, South Africa joins BRICS, which consists of countries like China, Russia, Brazil, and India. Finland hosts its first military drill as an official NATO member. About 1,000 international troops from the United Kingdom, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and the United States perform exercises. Dubbed as Arrow 23 exercises, the drill involves the use of heavy equipment sent from the United States. The objective of the military drills is to enhance the operation of mechanized units in demanding combat situations. China states that high vigilance is needed in facing NATO's eastward expansion. NATO is planning to open its first liaison office in Japan. This was made so they could facilitate talks with partners such as South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand with geopolitical challenges from China and Russia in mind. Mao Ning, spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry, says that Asia is a promising land for cooperation and development and should not be a battle arena for geopolitics. The Nikkei Asia said the proposed office was due to open next year in Tokyo. Canada's foreign minister is considering the expulsion of Chinese diplomats over an intelligence agency report saying one of them plotted to intimidate the Hong Kong relatives of a Canadian lawmaker. Foreign Minister Melanie Joly has summoned China's ambassador to remind them that Canada does not tolerate such interference. The intelligence agency reports indicated that opposition conservative lawmaker Michael Chong and his Hong Kong relatives were targeted after Chong criticized Beijing's human rights record. China slams the groundless slander and defamation by Canada after Ottawa summoned Beijing's ambassador over accusations a Chinese diplomat sought to intimidate a Canadian lawmaker and his family.
中方一贯反对任何国家干涉别国内政。我们从来没有，也没有任何兴趣干涉加拿大的内政。同时，中方坚决维护自身主权、安全、发展利益，坚决反对任何干涉中国内政、损害中国利益的行径。
Ukraine and Russia stressed their wartime rhetoric last Thursday as both camps hurled various accusations. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed his confidence that Vladimir Putin would be convicted of war crimes, and the Kremlin alleges that the U.S. was behind what it called an assassination attempt against the Russian president. Zelensky denied that Ukrainian forces were responsible for the drone attack. The Kremlin promised unspecified retaliation for what it termed a terrorist act, and pro-Kremlin figures called for the assassinations of senior Ukraine leaders. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters during a daily conference call that the Kremlin was well aware that the decision to the terrorist attacks were not made in Kyiv, but in Washington. U.S. intelligence officials are still trying to determine who was behind the drone incident and are exploring various possibilities. Zelensky's top advisor, Mikhailo Podolyak, claimed Thursday that Russia had staged the alleged drone attack. He cited the delay in Russian state media, reporting it was too coincidental and it appeared to show the aftermath of the alleged 2:30 a.m. attack from multiple angles.
Of course, we all want to see different Vladimir here in The Hague. The one who deserves to be sentenced for these criminal actions right here in the capital of the international law. And I'm sure we will see that happen when we win, and we will win.
A spokesman for the White House National Security Council rejects Russian accusations that the U.S. is behind the drone attack on the Kremlin. Moscow has said Ukraine launched the attack with help from the Americans. Security Council spokesman John Kirby says that their claims bore no weight.
State Department, I'm not aware of any private conversations between us and Russian officials over this alleged drone attack. I mean, it just happened yesterday. But I mean, I think we've been pretty clear that what Mr. Peskov says is just a blatant, bald lie. And I don't know that we need to privately convey that to him. I've been saying it all morning, and I'm saying it here again today.
Meanwhile, EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell warns Moscow not to use the alleged attack to justify increased action against Ukraine.
We call Russia not to use this alleged attack as an excuse to continue the escalation of the war. This is what worries us. What worries us is this can be used in order to justify more conscription of people, soldiers, more attacks to Ukraine.
Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese expressed frustration at the United States' continuing efforts to extradite WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. American prosecutors allege he helped U.S. Army intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning steal classified diplomatic cables and military files that WikiLeaks later published, putting lives at risk. Assange has spent years battling in UK courts to prevent his extradition to the U.S., where he is wanted on criminal charges, including espionage over the release of confidential U.S. military records and diplomatic cables in 2010. To his supporters, Assange is a secrecy-busting journalist who exposed U.S. military wrongdoing in Iraq and in Afghanistan. Albanese said he did not want to get into an argument about whether Assange's alleged actions were right or wrong. Sudanese demonstrators held a protest outside a hotel in Port Sudan, calling for UN envoy Volker Perthes to leave Sudan before storming his office. Perthes has been operating from Port Sudan since the eruption of armed conflict in Khartoum between the Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Forces. The demonstration began at the Alumni Club and ended at the Coral Hotel, where the UN envoy's headquarters is located. Protesters chanted slogans against the UN's involvement in Sudanese affairs and demanded the envoy's departure. The majority of protesters were affiliated with the former regime, while others belonged to the tribal body of the Supreme Council of Beja chiefdoms and independent groups. The UN envoy is part of a facilitation panel that includes the IGAD and the African Union. Trilateral mechanism is limited to facilitating the political process, which is led and run by Sudanese parties. Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness expressed his interest to turn the British Commonwealth country into a republic. Jamaica announced its intention to remove the monarchs as heads of state. Holness also noted some unresolved issues and alluded to forms of reparations. With a post-Brexit Britain being more of a sovereign decision than one economic one, various Commonwealth leaders are now looking into major organizational reforms and emancipation from the British monarchs. These sentiments have been long-standing but very resonant among the various age demographics within the colony as the whole world prepares for the coronation of King Charles III. Some reckless migration remarks by the French Interior Minister have triggered a diplomatic dilemma with Italy. Interior Minister Gerald Darmanin commented on Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's failure to solve the migration problems on which she was elected. Italy's foreign minister called the remarks unacceptable and pulled out of a scheduled trip to Paris. The French Foreign Ministry has since sought to ease tensions. This is not the first time Italy's right-wing government had a run-in with its French neighbors since it came to power last October.
Oui, il y a un afflux de personnes migrantes et notamment de mineurs. Parce que Madame Meloni, c'est-à-dire le gouvernement d'extrême droite, la première ministre italienne, le gouvernement d'extrême droite choisi par les amis de Madame Le Pen, est incapable de régler les problèmes migratoires sur lesquels elle a été élue. La vérité, c'est qu'il y a en Tunisie notamment, mais aussi en Libye, mais surtout en Tunisie, une situation politique qui fait que beaucoup d'enfants, notamment, remontent par l'Italie, et que l'Italie est incapable, vous savez bien, la une des journaux en fait les titres, de gérer cette pression migratoire.
Bah,
ça veut donc dire,
elle est en première ligne aussi.
Non, ça veut dire que Madame Meloni, c'est comme Madame Le Pen. C'est-à-dire qu'elle se fait élire sur « vous allez voir ce que vous allez voir », et puis ce qu'on voit, c'est que ça ne s'arrête pas et que ça s'amplifie. Parce que l'Italie connaît une très grave crise migratoire.
COVID-19 no longer represents a global health emergency. The World Health Organization said on Friday a major step towards the end of the pandemic that has killed more than 6.9 million people, disrupted the global economy, and ravaged communities.
Yesterday, the emergency committee met for the 15th time and recommended to me that I declare an end to the public health emergency of international concern. I have accepted that advice. It's therefore with great hope that I declare COVID-19 over as a global health emergency.
Up next, second mass shooting in Serbia claims 8 lives. Floods and landslides death count rises to 130 in Rwanda. And London prepares for King Charles's coronation. Please don't go away. We've got more stories from around the globe when Mata ng Agila International returns. Watching Mata ng Agila International. To receive more trusted, connected, and on-point news, follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV. A gunman opened fire and killed 8 people and wounded 14 in 3 Serbian villages. Police arrested a suspect Friday after an all-night manhunt. Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić called Thursday's shooting an attack on the whole nation. The bloodshed sent shockwaves through a Balkan nation scarred by wars but unused to mass murders. The last mass shooting before this week was in 2013 when a war veteran killed 13 people in a central Serbian village. Dragan Popadic, a psychology professor at Belgrade University, said that the school shooting has exposed the level of violence present in society and caused a deep shock within the collective psyche of Serbians. Rwandans are grieving for lost loved ones and destroyed homes. This after powerful floods and landslides killed at least 130 people and left many thousands more homeless. The government is counting the cost as families prepare to bury their dead in the aftermath of the disaster caused by torrential rains in the steep and hilly country. The government is raising emergency supplies to the worst-hit areas where evacuees are sheltering in tents. The government says over 5,100 homes were destroyed. All had families living in them. Experts say extreme weather events are happening with increased frequency and intensity due to climate change. Africa, which contributes to least to global warming, is bearing the brunt of it. A massive fire engulfs 30 houses in Uspenka. Ministry of Emergency Situations reports 79 people are evacuated from the area. The district's government report that 462 fires had been recorded in the region. Authorities say no casualties are reported. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, used fast attack boats to seize an oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz. This incident marks the second time Tehran's forces have seized an oil tanker since the U.S. blocked a crude oil or consignment with them last week. The Niovi, a Panama-flagged tanker, was swarmed by a dozen IRGC attack boats as it transited the strait. The ship had left Dubai on Tuesday and was due to arrive at the Emirati airport or port of Fujairah by Wednesday afternoon, but the ship was diverted to Iranian waters. The U.S. and its allies often block the transport of Iranian oil at sea, and Tehran usually responds in kind. U.S. and its allies often veto the transportation of Iranian oil into the general market. Tehran never fails to respond accordingly. The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, or IACHR, condemns the possible massacre of protesters against President Dina Boluarte, the ouster of then-President Pedro Castillo, which left 50 dead last December. The Organization of American States, or OAS, presented a report to the South American country at the beginning of the year, in which it points to the state agents for their alleged responsibility for multiple deaths of civilians. The response of the security forces was not uniform throughout the national territory, and there were serious episodes of excessive use of force in specific cases. Peruvian President Dina Boluarte rejected the alleged existence of extrajudicial executions and the classification of a massacre, even when it occurred during the protests. However, she highlighted the importance of the investigations carried out by the prosecution and urged to determine those responsible. The Commission's report follows a Human Rights Watch publication, which concluded that Peru's security forces were responsible for protest deaths. Pakistan's foreign minister arrived in India to take part in an international conference, the first official visit by a senior Pakistani official to the country's eastern neighbor since 2016. Along with counterparts from China and Russia, Pakistani Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari is in the Indian coastal resort state of Goa for a Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or SCO, meeting of foreign ministers. Bhutto gave no indication whether he would hold one-on-one talks with his opposite number in India, but said he hoped the SCO meeting would be very successful. Pakistan suspended trade and diplomatic ties with India in 2019 when New Delhi imposed direct rule on the part of Muslim-majority Kashmir it controls and enforced a heavy security lockdown. Both countries withdrew their top diplomats, and several consular staff were expelled or withdrawn in tit-for-tat measures. That development came after a military standoff earlier in the year that saw both countries launch airstrikes and an Indian fighter jet shot down. India currently holds a rotating presidency of the SCO, a forum established in 2001 that also includes several Central Asian states rivaling Western institutions. The presidents of Iran and Syria have signed a series of long-term cooperation agreements on oil and other sectors to bolster economic ties between the two longtime allies. Iran's Ebrahim Raisi, leading a large economic and political delegation, met his Syrian counterpart Bashar al-Assad after landing in the war-torn country for a two-day visit. This trip marks Raisi's first visit to Damascus since 2010. The Iranian delegation includes the ministers of foreign affairs, national defense, oil, roads, and urban development, as well as telecommunications. Tehran has been a main backer of the Syrian administration since a 2011 uprising turned into a full-fledged war. The Iranian government has played an instrumental role in turning the tide of the conflict in his favor. Syrian government forces have regained control of large parts of the country in recent years with the help of its two main allies, Russia and Iran. Navies from around the Asia-Pacific region have converged on Singapore this week. They met for the three-day International Maritime Defense Exhibition and Conference. The show is billed as the region's leading naval and maritime defense event. It is held every 2 years. But because of this pandemic, this is the first time in 4 years the show has been held. 22 warships from 13 countries, including the Philippines, dropped anchor at Singapore's Changi Naval Base Thursday. Naval officials from 38 countries held talks on maritime security. As well as military officials, there are more than 11,000 delegates from over 60 countries attending. About 200 companies have their wares on display for military buyers shopping for the latest equipment. In Canada, tens of thousands of federal workers end their 12-day strike after reaching a tentative deal with the government. Yolanda Aspiras tells us more.
After nearly 2 weeks since over 100,000 Canadian government workers began their strike, it was announced May 1st that they have now reached a tentative agreement with the federal government of Canada. The members of the Public Service Alliance of Canada, or PSAC, working for the Treasury Board and Canada Revenue Agency, went on strike on April 19 after unsuccessfully bargaining with the federal government for 2 years for wage increase, improved job security, increased remote work protections, anti-oppression training in the workplace, and protection against privatization. Said to be one of the biggest strikes in Canadian history, thousands of federal workers hit a total of 250 picket lines across Canada, including government buildings and the Parliament Hill. The 12-day strike, which comprised almost one-third of the federal public service workforce, have resulted to several delays and a complete shutdown of many critical services across the country. A complete cessation of tax season, as well as disruptions to employment insurance, immigration, and passport applications. On May 1st, PSAC announced that they have secured fair compensation and better working conditions for more than 120,000 of their members. Reporting from Toronto, Canada, Yolanda Aspiras for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Every year in the U.S. alone, the respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV, leads to approximately 60,000 to 120,000 hospitalizations. Yearly, 6,000 to 10,000 adults over 65 years old die from the disease. To combat the virus, the first vaccine against it has been given a thumbs up by the U.S. FDA. Carlo Valdez tells us more.
The first vaccine for respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV, has been approved for use here in the United States. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved Arexvy for the prevention of lower respiratory tract disease caused by RSV in individuals 60 years of age and older. RSV is a highly contagious virus. It causes infections of the lungs and breathing passages in individuals of all age groups. RSV circulation is seasonal. It typically starts during the fall and peaking in the winter. In older adults, RSV is a common cause of lower respiratory tract disease, which affects the lungs and can cause life-threatening pneumonia and bronchiolitis. The FDA says the approval of Arexvy vaccine is an important public health achievement to prevent a life-threatening disease. In Union, New Jersey, Carlo Valdez for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
With King Charles's coronation set for tomorrow, find out how people from London prepare for the celebration. From London, United Kingdom, Love and Season will tell us more.
With London decked out in British flags 1 day ahead of the coronation of King Charles III, the capital's residents are eager to celebrate what can be regarded as an important historical and cultural event for the country over the long weekend. Royal superfans in London have been camping along the Mall for several days to be sure they get front row seats. The coronation of King Charles III and his wife Camilla as Queen Consort will be held on Saturday, May 6th, and is the centerpiece of a weekend of events to mark the occasion. It begins with the King's procession, a 2-kilometer trip from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Abbey, where King Charles will be crowned. Some 2,000 people will be inside the Abbey, from foreign leaders and royalty to elected officials and civil society representatives. After the service, the King and Queen Consort will return to Buckingham Palace in the Gold State
coach in a larger ceremonial coronation procession. They will be joined by other members of the royal family and some 4,000 British and Commonwealth troops in full regalia. At the palace, they will appear on the balcony to greet the crowd and conclude the day's ceremonial events. On Sunday, May 7th, neighborhood street parties will be held across the UK called the Big Coronation Lunch. Communities are invited to share food and have fun together, a great way to get to know their neighbors better. Now in the evening, Windsor Castle, west of London, hosts some 10,000 people at a coronation concert featuring artists including Katy Perry, Lionel Richie, Take That, and Andrea Bocelli. Monday, May 8 has been declared a public holiday. Called the Big Help Out, the royal family is encouraging Britons to do voluntary work in their neighborhood in the hope of bringing communities together and leaving lasting legacy for the coronation weekend. This is Love and Season London Bureau reporting for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
An expert reflects on King Charles's upcoming coronation and explains why it will be a slimmed-down event. Our UK correspondent, Asaria Alcantara, reports.
Change is inevitable. The last 70 years since the late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II's coronation, the world revolutionized in so many ways. With the recent pandemic that blew the whole nation and the surging inflation, the enthroning event of King Charles II will be trimmed down for a reason. The ascension to the throne is said to be considerably shorter than the Queen's. It is believed that the coronation will last for an hour, in contrast to the 3-hour duration 70 years ago, with 6,000 fewer guests and many outdated ceremony abolished.
King Charles's coronation will be much smaller. There will be just over 2,000 guests, whereas in 1953, for the Queen's coronation, there were over 8,000, seated in the Abbey and tier upon tier, going almost up to the roof. And you can describe the 1953 coronation, if you like, as the last hurrah for empire, because Britain then still had colonies all around the world, and many of the guests who came from those colonies in countries of what is now the British Commonwealth.
The dress code is more relaxed, as sources claim. The king is unlikely to make outfit changes but will use the gold state coach in his procession.
Public opinion suggests there is less very strong support for the monarchy, and the palace is always sensitive to those changes in public opinion, and therefore it doesn't want the coronation to be a very expensive or extravagant occasion. And King Charles himself has expressed a wish for the royal family to be streamlined. And so in keeping with that wish, I think also it will be a slimmed-down event compared with 1953.
The customary gold presentation to the monarch is expected to be removed under Operation Golden Orb, along with specially created velvet chairs for guests. This is in line with coronation planner Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Mather's statement that the king is crowned for the people. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I am Sara Alcantara for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The president of the upcoming United Nations climate talks says fossil fuels would continue to answer the demand for energy for the foreseeable future. During the Petersburg Climate Dialogue, Sultan Ahmad Al-Jaber says this is in helping meet global energy requirements. The Petersburg Climate Dialogue is a meeting of climate diplomats in Berlin.
So our aim should be focused on ensuring that we phase out emissions from all sectors, whether it's oil and gas or high emitting industries. And the theme have always been phasing out emissions. Again, phasing out emissions by building on and capitalizing on existing and new and emerging technologies.
People in the northeastern Brazilian city of Buriticupu are on edge, literally. The ground beneath them is collapsing, creating enormous craters. Those huge holes in the ground have swallowed streets and houses. Some people have even died. Experts blame the problem on deforestation and a lack of urban planning. Buriti is on the edge of the Amazon rainforest. In the 1970s, the city quickly expanded. Rampant logging has decimated the region's forests, and that has taken away the ability of the soil to absorb rainwater. Coupled with the lack of adequate drainage systems, the city of 70,000 finds itself trying to cope with a growing number of large sinkholes. In all, there are 26 of them. So far, about 50 houses have collapsed into the craters. Another 300 are at risk. Coming right up, Federal Reserve increases key rate by 0.25%. Russian cosmonauts conduct a spacewalk outside the International Space Station. And witness Papua New Guinea's celebration of International Dance Day. Catch the latest in business, sports, and entertainment when Mata ng Agila International returns. It's going to cost Americans more to borrow money. Federal Reserve Board Chairman Jerome Powell says the board's key interest rate is going up.
The FOMC raised its policy interest rate by a 1/4 percentage point. Since early last year, we've raised interest rates by a total of 5 percentage points in order to attain a stance of monetary policy that is sufficiently restrictive to return inflation to 2% over time.
The increase is the 10th in 14 months. The board's benchmark rate has been pushed to between 5 and 5.25%, the highest in 16 years. The European Union Central Bank has hiked interest rates. On Thursday, the bank raised the benchmark rate by 25 basis points to 3.25%. Bank President Christine Lagarde says the battle against inflation is not over, hinting there could be more increases.
Our future decisions will ensure that the policy rates will be brought to levels sufficiently restrictive to achieve a timely return of inflation to our 2% medium-term target and will be kept at those levels for as long as necessary.
Thursday's rate hike is the 7th consecutive increase in the central bank's campaign to tighten the money supply. Two Russian cosmonauts conduct a spacewalk outside the International Space Station, or ISS. Expedition 69 Commander Sergei Prokopyev and flight engineer Dmitry Petelin are both with the Russian Federal Space Corporation Roscosmos. During the 7-hour and 11-minute spacewalk, the cosmonauts successfully transferred and installed an experiment airlock to the Nauka multipurpose laboratory module. This is Prokopiev's 5th spacewalk and Petelin's 3rd and the 262nd spacewalk for the ISS. In the world of sports, the Splash Brothers make their name known in LA. And Napoli wins its first title since 1990. Vin Pasqua has the score.
In the 2023 NBA playoffs, the Golden State Warriors evened the series at 1-1 against the Los Angeles Lakers with a Game 2 win. The Splash Brothers Klay Thompson and Stephen Curry combined for 50 points as they helped the Warriors win Game 2 127-100. Thompson scored 30 points with 8 made three-pointers while Curry added with 20 points. Game 3 of the series will be on Sunday where the game will shift to Los Angeles. Next up, in football, Napoli wins their first Italian Serie A title in 33 years, clinching the Scudetto on Thursday with a 1-1 draw at Udinese. For the first time in 33 years, the Partenope are champions of Italy, something nobody predicted last summer. This marks the league's first since 1990 when the late Diego Maradona brought home the Scudetto. Sandy Lovric's shot gave Udinese a first-half lead, but Napoli forward Victor Osimhen made it 1-1 early in the second half. Osimhen, who is Serie A's leading goal scorer this season, has been key to Napoli's success, and this was his 22nd league goal of the campaign. The 24-year-old Nigerian scored his goal in front of the traveling Napoli fans who celebrated the equalizer deliriously. Vin Pasqua for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Academy Award-winning Jamie Foxx releases a post of gratitude amid health concerns. J.D. Mahinay has the details.
American actor Jamie Foxx shares his gratitude after being hospitalized due to an undisclosed medical complication. In his verified Instagram, he posted, "Appreciate all the love, feeling blessed." Celebrities such as record producer DJ Khaled, rapper Ludacris, and Backstreet Boy AJ McLean responded with messages of support for the Academy Award-winning actor. Following Fox's first statement amid hospitalization, Fox Network announces that American television host Nick Cannon will fill the role as guest host in a music-related game show, Beat Shazam, which Fox and his daughter Corinne hosted. Model and fashion designer Kelly Osbourne will also be filling in as guest DJ on the show. Last April 11, the American actor was filming the Netflix movie Back in Action with British Academy Film awardee Cameron Diaz before he was sent to the hospital. J.D. Mahinay for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Now that it's a weekend, why not spend time with friends and family at the movie theaters? Stephanie Mayo has her pick of what to watch. Take a look.
In the epic conclusion to the Guardians trilogy, Marvel Studios' Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Star-Lord and the crew go on a dangerous mission to save one of their own. Star-Lord, played by Chris Pratt, and his band of misfits embark on a mission to save Rocket's life, at the same time defend the universe. Directed by James Gunn, the highly anticipated 30-second film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe finds Peter Quill / Star-Lord still reeling from the loss of Gamora, and the crew will do everything they could to prevent the same fate from happening to Rocket. The movie received a generally positive response, the last and final adventure of the galactic ragtag family that Marvel fans has come to love, now showing in Philippine theaters. Stephanie Mayo for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Communities in Papua New Guinea joined the nation's celebration of International Dance Day. Witnessing the events is Net 25's Eco Hortaleza Quinola. Watch this.
Papua New Guinea is one with the world in celebrating the International Dance Day. Residents from the Moresby South, Northeast, Northwest, and the Motu Koita community joined the International Dance Day celebration in the National Capital District. The day starts with an early morning walk and exercise from Sir Hubert Murray to Ella Beach, Aracone. Dance troops from different schools and communities perform and entertain the crowd. Papua New Guinea's Agent Ex-Creative Director Miss Ellen Misibere speaks about the theme of this year, dancing, a way to communicate with the world.
Every country, every culture, they have their own dances, and it's what unites us. And of course, it's because it's become an institution where people now do it as a living. Therefore, it's important. It's like technology itself. You always have to advance yourself by, being versatile in what you do, but also being unique to yourself. And that's the challenge, and that's the beauty about dance. It's always fresh.
The National Capital District Commission Governor, Poe Sparko, concludes the event by campaigning to the citizens to hone their talents.
For me, I would like to see this platform be taken to another level. I want to see if all the schools can have a dance competition, whether it's traditional dancing or contemporary dancing or fusion of both traditional, contemporary, Kaikan style, hip hop or whatever you play. Nowadays, young people are walking Kaikan. We must have time for recreation, entertainment, creativeness, kind of loosen up.
They might just represent Papua New Guinea to international competitions someday.
It's a way of expressing ourselves, and sometimes you tell stories through dances. I'm not a dancer, but I really like the message behind it, and our young people can take it into the future. And I'm confident that dancing will pick up. I see a lot of dance groups nowadays.
Dance has been a very, very important thing in my life. Brings me away from trouble, stress. And I'm a dancer. I've been dancing for almost 20 years now. Dance means a lot to everyone in Port Moresby, and I think around the world too, because it has a voice for everyone.
Eco Hortaleza Quinola, Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
And it's finally the last day of the work week. Here's a quote from world-renowned author Paulo Coelho. When we love, we always strive to become better than we are. When we strive to become better than we are, everything around us becomes better too. And who doesn't want things to get better around him? So never ever tire of loving. I assure you, love will find its way back to you. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Nina Richie Alagao, wishing everyone a great weekend filled with love. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.